Good evening. Welcome to our Friday night event of the 4th Annual Free Thinking Film Festival. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Before we start, a couple of announcements. First off, some good news. There will be no Mike Duffy jokes tonight. I do have a few Rob Ford jokes. My whole mind today was, it would be a great, it's like wrestling. I want a tag team match of Mike Duffy and Rob Ford versus Michael Moore and Jesse Ventura. And get some really angry promoter yelling and screaming as they come on out. I just think it would be a great little match. But I was talking to my friend Terry Glavin today, and we were talking about the media. And we said, if there was a CNN Canada, it would be all Duffy all day. That would be their slogan. All Duffy all day. And it would be nonstop for like 3 weeks, and we're all waiting. What's the next bombshell, right? I mean, when you see that your past days, is there another bombshell coming? And then you know that there is no bombshell. There's nothing to this, but it's quite amazing. There's a lot of films during the weekend, so if you're here for the weekend, tomorrow we start at 11 o'clock with Broken Soldiers, which is a film about how Canada treats its veterans, and we'll have a speaker at that film. Tomorrow we've got Terry Glavin at 2:15 here in the main auditorium, he's just come back from Jordan. He spent 2 weeks going to all the refugee camps in Jordan. He's going to show his pictures and video and talk about what he learned about the crisis in Syria. Tomorrow night, we've got an amazing film on China's cyber spying in Australia, followed by a panel discussion on Canada. We've got the ex-head of security for Nortel coming in, who not only wants to tell us about what China did to Nortel, but he also wants to tell his story of working with the RCMP, or trying to warn the RCMP about what was happening. We also have the chief security officer tomorrow night of the company that identified the actual building in China where they spy from. And what I thought was interesting there was when they go for lunch in China, the cyber attacks drop down. You could map it, when they're eating lunch and having breaks. So that's going to be an incredible panel. Don't miss it. On Sunday, we've got some amazing films. We've got a great documentary on Winston Churchill and the Jews. If you notice, I'm wearing a Winston Churchill tie tonight. So I try whenever possible to show films on Winston Churchill. Followed on Sunday afternoon by an amazing documentary called Orchestra of Exiles. And if you haven't seen this, it's about how one violinist during the Second World War went throughout Europe auditioning and finding the best Jewish musicians, arranging with the British to get permits for them to enter Palestine, and then he formed what would become the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra. So the best Jewish musicians were saved because of one man's work, and it's just an absolutely amazing film. Now, I always tell people that I have the most depressing film festival in the world. Now, I should back up a bit. This week I was at I went to the Jewish National Fund dinner. It's an annual dinner where you raise money for projects in Israel, like water projects, environmental projects. And this year they were honoring Dr. Robert Roberts, who is a very, very famous heart surgeon or a cardiac surgeon here in Ottawa. And he went up and he gave a speech, and it was a 40-minute substantial speech on the heart and genetics. I mean, it was really an interesting, serious talk, and it was actually quite uplifting. And after he finished, the next speaker was Bret Stephens, who was perhaps one of the best conservative columnists in the United States for the Wall Street Journal. And he got up and he said, Dr. Roberts really didn't realize, if he's not Jewish, he doesn't realize that if you're speaking to a big Jewish crowd, you have to have the most depressing speech you can make. So it's sort of like our film festival. We have a very, very depressing weekend ahead for you, but we are going to end the film festival on a positive note. We're going to show a film tomorrow night. It's about Uganda, and it's a documentary about a coffee co-op in Uganda where the Jews the Christians and the Muslims work together to, in peace, to make profit in coffee. And I brought over the head of the Ugandan Jewish community to talk tomorrow night. He's going to show you some pictures of, there's around 2,000 Jews living in Uganda. They have over 7 synagogues. He's going to show you his pictures. He's going to play a little bit of guitar. He actually was nominated for a Grammy several years ago, so you'll hear his music. And then we're going to serve some Ugandan coffee outside. You can also buy some Ugandan coffee to help him out. So it's going to be a real change of pace and uplifting film from us at Free Thinking Films. Okay, so enough of the advertisement. When I was putting together the agenda for this weekend, I typically use the whole summer. So I spend the summer watching movies and thinking about possible guests who could come to the festival who I want to talk to. It's very ego-driven. I really show the kind of films I want to see. And I talk to people I want to talk to. And I thought, you know what? Who could be better? Who could be better than to bring to Ottawa Barbara Kay? I mean, you know, it's worth buying the National Post just to read Barbara Kay. There's a whole host of topics that Barbara covers that nobody else will touch. And it just so happens that Barbara has a new book out called Acknowledgements, which you can buy outside afterwards, and Barbara will sign. So please buy a copy. And when this came out earlier this year, I bought a copy immediately from the publisher out in, I was in Vancouver at a conference. I bought one immediately, and it's an absolutely fantastic book. You know, the first 45 pages are sort of a bit of a bio-memoir of Barbara's life, and then it goes into some of her topics that she writes columns about, and it just reads, as any good columnist reads amazingly well, and there's some very, very important material in here. So it was a no-brainer. It was like, okay, I get to talk to one of the best columnists in Canada, and we can do a book launch at the same time. And so I reached out to Barbara, and she was gracious enough to agree to come to Ottawa and do a launch. And so I just want to introduce that Barbara, she, as you know, she writes for the National Post, but also she writes in a whole variety of other magazines. So she's on Front Page Magazine, Pajamas Media, the Canadian Observer, a favorite of mine, the Dorchester Review, which is a magazine everybody here should check out, an amazing historical magazine that challenges anybody else in this country. City Libre, you name it. Barbara is amazing. So I'd like to introduce her. Please welcome Barbara Kay.